listen, I need you to stop what you are doing right now because the Dallas Cowboys just pulled back the curtain on their entire defensive vision at the NFL Combine. And what these new coaches said in Indianapolis is going to completely shift how you think about this defense heading into next season. And before we break all of this down, make sure you hit that subscribe button because we cover Cowboys news the second it drops, and you do not want to miss what is coming next for this team. So let's get into it because the new defensive staff just went on record, and the things they revealed about the scheme, the players they are excited about, and the culture they are building honestly gave me chills. And I think by the end of this, you are going to feel a whole lot better about where this defense is headed. So the Cowboys sent their brand new defensive coaching staff to the Combine to meet with media, and what we got was an absolute masterclass in what this organization is trying to become on that side of the ball. And the crazy part is every single coach kept hitting on the same themes over and over again, which tells me Christian Parker has already gotten everyone aligned on exactly what this defense needs to be. And that is something we have not seen in Dallas in a very long time. Let's start with Derrick Ansley, the new defensive backs coach and passing game coordinator, because this man came out and immediately set the tone for what Cowboys fans should expect from the secondary. And he talked about how the interview process with the Cowboys was incredibly thorough and how he got to meet with everyone from Will McClay to assistant coaches to support staff. And that level of detail in the hiring process tells you this organization is doing things differently now. But here is what nobody is talking about when it comes to Ansley, and that is his direct connection to Nick Saban, because this man worked under Saban at Alabama on two separate occasions, first as a graduate assistant with the secondary, and then later as the actual secondary coach. And if you know anything about Saban, you know that he is considered one of the greatest defensive back developers in football history, and Ansley straight up said he took core values from Saban that he still uses today, things like playing man coverage the right way, tackling the right way, communicating at a high level, and having size at the position. And he mentioned that even some of the daily drills they ran at Alabama, he still runs now with some modern tweaks added in. And when you hear that, you have to get excited because that Saban coaching tree has produced some of the best defensive minds in football. And now Dallas has a direct branch of that tree coaching their secondary. And when Ansley was asked about the current roster, he specifically mentioned DaRon Bland and Trevin Diggs. Wait, no, it was actually the rookie corner from last year. And he said he has known about these guys since they were coming out of college. And the thing he emphasized was getting to know the man first before developing the football player, because he believes if you connect with a player on a personal level, the football development will follow naturally. And that is such an important philosophy because we have seen what happens when coaches try to force schemes on players without building that relationship first. It leads to confusion, it leads to frustration, and it leads to a defense that plays tight instead of playing free. Now, here is where it gets really interesting, because when Ansley was asked about teaching and how he simplifies complex NFL concepts for players, he said something that stood out to me more than anything else in these interviews. He said words matter, and the way you deliver information to players matters, and how much they can digest at one time matters. And this might sound simple, but it is actually profound, because one of the biggest criticisms of the previous defensive staff was that they were out of touch with how modern players learn and communicate. And Ansley clearly understands that the game itself does not change that much, but how you teach it to each new generation absolutely has to evolve. And he talked about how every player learns differently. Some guys need to see it in meetings. Some guys need walkthrough reps. Some guys need to watch film of other players doing it right or wrong. And as a coach, you have to identify how each individual player learns best and then deliver the information in that specific way. And that level of attention to detail in player development is exactly what this secondary has been missing. But wait, because it gets even better when we get to Ryan Smith, the new secondary coach, and this man brought an energy that jumped through the screen during his interview. And here is the backstory that makes this hire so fascinating. Ryan Smith and Christian Parker go way back, like way back. They are both from Virginia. They played against each other in college. Parker went to Richmond and Smith went to William and Mary, which are rival schools. And get this, they are both members of the same fraternity, Kappa Alpha Psi, and they connected through that brotherhood early in their careers and have stayed plugged in, helping each other develop ever since. And even though they never worked on the same staff before, they always respected how each other approached the game. And now they finally get to work together in Dallas, and you can tell there is genuine chemistry there, because Smith talked about how he watched Parker from afar when Parker was in Philadelphia Philadelphia and saw the brand of defense they played, and he said he always wanted to be a part of it, and when the opportunity came, it was a no-brainer for him to join this staff. And Smith laid out his coaching philosophy in 3 simple words: trust, passion, and drive. And he said building trust with players is the foundation of everything, because if they trust you, they will buy into what you are teaching, and then you bring the passion every single day, showing up ready to make those guys better. And finally, you need the drive to push players to achieve things they could not achieve on their own. And when you hear him talk, you can feel the energy coming through, and that is exactly the type of coach you want in that secondary room, because defensive backs need that fire, they need that intensity, and Smith clearly has it. Now, here is where things get tactical, because Smith was asked about what stood out when he watched the Cowboys secondary tape from last season, and he gave a very diplomatic answer saying there were plays left on the table, but then he pivoted to talking about how the new scheme is going to help those same players perform better. And he specifically mentioned the 3-4 structure, and how being able to get into nickel and 4-down looks in different situations is going to fit the guys they have. And he said the players will be able to play faster, play more instinctively, and use their natural traits to put themselves in better positions. And he predicted fans are going to see a completely different product on the field. And that is a bold statement, but based on everything these coaches are saying, I actually believe it. And Smith dropped a gem when talking about multiplicity in the secondary, because he explained that being multiple is hard for offenses to deal with, because you can show the same shell or tilt on defense, but do completely different things out of it. And offenses in the NFL are too good now, so you need to have a lot of clubs in your bag, using his golf analogy. And from the safety spot, that means different coverage variations, different front variations, different technique variations, and being able to execute all of those things out of similar looks gives the defense a huge advantage. But here is what really impressed me about Smith, and that is his teaching background, because this man has a business degree from William and Mary, and then he went and got his master's in educational leadership from Penn State, where he took classes at night with future superintendents and principals and people in higher education, and he learned actual classroom strategies and techniques for getting people to retain information, and he has incorporated that into his coaching everywhere he has been. And he told a story about coaching at Northwestern in 2022, where he was dealing with Ivy League caliber student athletes who are some of the smartest people you will ever meet, and that challenged him every day to come into the meeting room prepared and ready to teach at a high level. And he said you cannot just throw on film and click through it. You have to organize and structure your meetings. You have to give guys small breaks at the right times. You have to flash a movie clip or throw in a GIF to recapture attention and keep things associated with what you are teaching. And you have to get guys up in front of the room, not just to repeat information, but to actually teach it to the younger players, and knowing each individual player, how they learn, how they retain information, whether they need extra one-on-one time, whether they are better in the morning or afternoon, whether voiceovers help. All of that goes into being an elite teacher at this level. And Smith clearly has that background. Now, let me tell you about the outside linebackers coach, Chadra Uzodinma. And this hire is fascinating because he comes directly from Georgia, where he worked under Kirby Smart. And when he was asked what it felt like to get the call from Dallas, he said, "It was a surprise and truly a blessing, but it was one of those opportunities you simply cannot say no to." And I want all the people out there who act like the Cowboys' job is not attractive to hear that, because a coach coming from one of the most dominant college programs in the country just said joining Dallas was an opportunity he could not pass up. So let's put that narrative to rest right now. And when Uzodinma was asked what he learned from Kirby Smart that translates to the NFL level, he gave an answer that tells you exactly what kind of coach he is going to be. He said Smart taught him not to be fearful about confronting and demanding expectations from players, and that coaches are required to hold players accountable the same way the head coach holds the assistants accountable. And that consistency is going to be huge for this Cowboys defense, because we have seen what happens when there is no accountability, when players are not pushed to meet high standards, and it sounds like those days are over. And when Uzodinma was asked about Christian Parker, he said something that honestly gave me a lot of confidence in this entire defensive staff. He said the vision is clear, and I cannot stress enough how important that is, because when a position coach says the defensive coordinator has communicated a clear vision of what he wants and how he wants it done, that means everyone is on the same page, and that makes it easier for everyone to do their jobs. And quite frankly, we did not hear that kind of clarity from the previous staff when they were first starting out, so this feels like a genuine step forward. As for what Uzodinma is looking for from edge edge rushers, he kept it simple. The two main jobs are setting the edge and the run game, being physical at the point of attack and getting after the quarterback. And he said those are the top two priorities and everything else flows from there. And when you have that kind of clarity on what you need from a position, it makes evaluation and development so much easier. Now we get to Marcus Dixon, the new defensive line coach, and this is a homecoming story that is going to hit different for longtime Cowboys fans because this is Dixon's third stint with the organization. He played for Dallas back in 2008. He came back in 2015 as an intern defensive line coach, and now he is back as the full-time D-line coach, and he straight up said this is a dream come true and that Dallas has always had a special place in his heart. And when you have a coach who genuinely loves the organization and considers it home, that passion translates to the players and the way he coaches. And when Dixon was asked about the defensive tackle room featuring Quinnen Williams, Kenny Clark, and Osa Odigizua, he could barely contain his excitement because he said these guys play hard, they play physical, they are athletic, they play the game the right way, and he has heard they are great human beings and great leaders as well. And with guys like that, you can move them around, create one-on-one matchups that they are going to win, and that is a recipe for dominance up front. Dixon also talked about his coaching style for generating pressure on the quarterback, and he said it is about creating those one-on-ones and then putting ownership on the players to go win those matchups. And he emphasized playing with your hands, attacking rather than reacting, not allowing vertical push on early downs. And then when you have earned it on third down, that is when you hunt the quarterback. And that mentality of earning the right to rush the passer by doing your job on early downs is exactly how championship defenses operate. And Dixon said something about Christian Parker that really stood out. He said CP is built for this. He has been ready for this, and you can tell he has rolled into the role naturally. And Dixon worked with Parker for 2 years in Denver, so he knows firsthand what kind of coach Parker is. And he said back then he knew Parker was going to be a defensive coordinator and eventually a head coach because he just has that it factor. And the way Parker has put this staff together with no egos, everyone wanting to win, everyone collaborating on how to help players be the best versions of themselves, that tells you this is going to be a special group. Finally, we have Scott Simons, the new linebackers coach, who brings a unique perspective because he is a Dallas-Fort Worth product who grew up in Hurst, Texas, right in the shadow of Valley Ranch, watching those great Cowboys teams as a kid, and now he gets to coach for the organization he grew up rooting for. And that is a surreal, full-circle moment that, is going to fuel his passion every single day. Simons came from SMU, where he was a defensive coordinator, so he brings that play calling experience and that big picture understanding of how defenses work. And when asked about his linebacker room, he did not hold back. He said, first and foremost, they are going to be physical and they are not going to turn it down. And he specifically mentioned DeMarvion Overshone calling him an unbelievable contagious energy when he walks in the building. And he talked about Shamar and how excited he is to work with both of those guys. And he said the linebackers are going to be dominant against the run, getting off blocks, being productive in every phase. And they are going to play with unbelievable effort every single play because that is something they will not compromise on. And here's what I found interesting, because when Simons was asked about the transition from college to the NFL, he talked about evaluations and how in some ways it is actually cleaner to evaluate NFL talent, because by the time guys reach free agency or their junior and senior years in college, the film is high quality and you can really see what a player is, whereas high school film is sometimes grainy and the projection is tougher. And that perspective of someone who is recruited and evaluated at both levels is valuable for this organization as they build the roster around this new scheme. Now, let me bring this all together, because the overarching theme from every single one of these interviews was teaching and development, and every coach mentioned it in different ways. Ansley talked about learning the learner and delivering information the way each player digests it best. Smith talked about his educational leadership background and creating engaging meeting rooms. Dixon talked about putting ownership on players and coaching them to be the best versions of themselves. Simons talked about fundamental development and building the scheme around what players do best, and this collective emphasis on actually developing players rather than just expecting them to already be perfect is exactly what this defense needs, because the reality is Dallas has talented players who have underperformed relative to their potential, and maybe that was a coaching issue as much as anything else. And the other theme that kept coming up was clear vision, and Christian Parker being the architect of that vision. And multiple coaches mentioned how Parker communicated exactly what he wants and how he wants it done. And that level of clarity trickles down to every position group, because when everyone understands the big picture, they can do their individual jobs more effectively. And that alignment is something championship teams have and losing teams lack. So, what does all of this mean for the Cowboys heading into next season? Well, it means the defense is going to look fundamentally different, not just in scheme with the switch to a 3-4 base and being multiple, but in how they play, in their physicality, their effort, their communication, and their ability to create chaos for opposing offenses. And with the personnel, they have Quinnen Williams in the middle, DeMarvion, Overshone, flying around at linebacker, the secondary getting coaching from Saban disciples. This defense has a real chance to be elite if everything comes together. Now, I want to hear from you in the comments. What are you most excited about when it comes to this new defensive staff? Is it the Saban connection through Derrick Ansley? Is it the energy Ryan Smith is bringing? Is it the clear vision Christian Parker has established? Or is it something else entirely? Drop your thoughts below. And while you are at it, make sure you subscribe if you have not already, because we are going to be covering every single move this team makes from free agency through the draft and into training camp. And you are going to want to be here for all of it, because this Cowboys defense is about to undergo a complete transformation. And it starts with the coaches they just hired. And I, for one, cannot wait to see this thing unfold. So stay locked in, stay passionate, and I will catch you on the next one.